Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Tameka Ellington today. I am your host for Student Access 101. For those of you that may not know me, I am an educator, scholar, and a lover of all things educational advancement and growth. And I've been working with students for many years now and absolutely love students. I had an amazing experience on yesterday. I got a chance to go to the EOA conference. That's the Educational Opportunities Association conference. There were probably about 400 or 500 people there. All of these individuals are all student advocates for first generation students and underrepresented students. And it was just an amazing time. And I was blessed enough to be given an Achiever Award. I was nominated for that award from some of my friends at Kent State University in their TRIO programs. And I got the award, which was awesome. And just getting a chance to connect with so many professionals that have the same goal in mind is amazing. And so today's guest that we have is Dr. Greta Oliver. And she and I met at the incredible Power Networking Conference that's hosted by Dr. George Fraser every year. He's been doing that conference now for, I think, at least a decade now that he's been doing that conference. And when she and I met, we instantly clicked. And once we learned a little bit more about each other, we realized that we were soul sisters, that we had a similar mission, in that we want to help better educational opportunities for students and to provide better access for those students. And so I will introduce in and unmute my guest. Welcome, Dr. Greta.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come on your podcast. Yes, we are definitely sisters. We
Yes.
have such a great deal of things in common, even from TRIO, our
Yes.
Cleveland connection, all
Yes.
kinds of things. And so
Yeah.
we both love students. That's
Absolutely.
undeniable.
Absolutely. Yes. And so I'm going to read your bio so that everybody knows what wonderful work you're doing. So, holding an undergraduate degree in business education from Bowling Green State University, a master's of education degree in adult learning and development from Cleveland State University, and a doctorate degree in higher education from Ohio University. Dr. Greta Thomas Oliver is a professional coach specializing in student development and is devoted to helping students successfully transition from high school to higher education. Having spent many years of her life in the classroom as a student as well and as a teacher, Dr. Greta is a true educator and supporter of students of all ages, helping students reach their goals, serving as a resource to help them and their parents navigate the path to college, and making a difference in their lives is her passion. With over 25 years of experience with and on behalf of students, her areas of expertise include student development, program administration, student recruitment, student retention, career preparation, and program development. Dr. Greta is the owner of Greta Oliver Consulting, a hands-on consulting business that specializes in transitioning to higher education, personal development, and career training. Dr. Greta is also the host of Educate You, which is a podcast designed to help students and their parents navigate the world of higher education. So it is my pleasure to introduce Student Access 101 to Dr. Greta Oliver.
Thank you once again.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
You're welcome. So I'm excited because I want to know a little bit more about you. So we had an opportunity to have a little conversation when I was on your podcast, when I was a guest on your podcast. We learned a little bit more about each other, but I would love to learn a little bit more about you and what was it in your spirit that you knew that this was the kind of work you wanted to do.
Well, absolutely. I love students, as I said before.
Yeah.
I've always been in education. When I was a high school teacher, I've been a corporate trainer. All of these things were just paths in education.
Yeah.
And so I really found my love for students when I started working at Ohio University on behalf of students, all the recruitment, retention, and kind of watching everything they're doing.
Yeah.
Part of my job, college advising, just trying to see how we could help students to be successful.
Yeah.
And so I found my love for students then. And so I've always wanted to do that. And once I actually left the college setting, I'm no longer working on a college campus right now. I just missed that. I honestly
Mhm.
missed it. And so
Mhm.
I was wondering how I could still be in contact with students and still be able to help them. And then I just kind of thought about my own experience, because
Yeah,
experience is the best teacher, actually. And
absolutely.
so, what kind of things would I have wanted to know when I went to college? And what kind of programs should I have been checking out? Or who should I have been talking to or checking in with? Or what advocates or mentors should I have been finding?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
I did none of that. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was easy to see what I didn't do. And so when I wrote my book, I tried to incorporate all of those things so that those students coming behind me wouldn't have to go through the same thing I went through
Mhm.
as a first generation college student.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what inspired my book too. The book that I wrote, Career Readiness Manual, for first generation students, because I just remember how difficult it was for me, stepping into the career, and stepping into the corporate space
Hmm.
as a first generation student, not having anybody in my family who's ever worked in the corporate space, and I just wasn't ready for it.
Right.
I just wasn't ready. I
Hmm.
went in and I learned as I went, but there were so many things that I wish I would have known, in that journey on, when
Yes.
I started. And so that's, we, like I said, again, we have a similar love for students and the work that we do. And what I want to know is, what was it that actually inspired you to leave the university and to go off on your own?
Okay. Well, that was a whole nother story, uh, which kind of speaks to what I'm actually doing now besides the student development piece. But really, when I moved from Ohio to North Carolina, I found that, everybody's got a PhD here.
Oh, is that
Suddenly
right?
I wasn't like a shining star or anything anymore.
Ooh,
And
that's deep.
yeah, and my husband
Mhm.
had actually been recruited to both Ohio University and UNC, and actually got recruited to UNC 2 years before he started. So he's
Wow.
always been the one that's been recruited. And so I was the trailing spouse, who was hoping that anybody, somebody, God, anybody would, help me out in my career path. And I still wanted to work with students. And so, um, it was really that the opportunities really were not there. I
Mm,
looked, and there's a lot to be said about the fact that when you are looking for a job, a lot of times it's not what you know, it's who you know.
absolutely.
And even coming into a different state was difficult. They have North Carolina way and then the Ohio way. And it's just like
Mhm.
I was having such a hard time. And the jobs that I did get were temporary or part time or interim
Yeah.
and ended. And so, at this point, it's quite frustrating. And so I kind of made a shift really recently and started working on a book about career roadmap.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to be the roadmap queen. That's it. The
Yeah.
roadmap coach, because I'm trying to get everybody
I
from
love
point A
that,
to
the
point B.
roadmap
So,
coach. I like that.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
going to do that. It's going to be trademarked, but it's a new way of kind of looking for a job. But I found myself needing that information. Once again, writing a book because I needed the information.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I just want to help people. And so I didn't really have a choice, in all honesty.
Uh-huh.
It's like, okay, I had some contracts, I did some different independent contracting, I did some interim work, I worked at Wake Tech at a community college talking about employability skills and teaching people how to do resumes and all of that stuff that's in my career roadmap
Yeah.
book. But once that ended, I found myself with myself. That was it.
Oh,
And
wow,
so I was
wow.
like, okay, it was hard. It was a hard lesson. And once I realized that, the sun didn't rise and set on me, I guess, I figured, okay, well, I'll just start a consulting company and offer classes about what I know how to do. And
Yeah.
so that's how Greta Oliver Consulting, actually it started as Oliver Consulting, got
Okay.
started. And so I changed the name to Greta Oliver Consulting when I wrote the book because I wanted it to be a little different. I wanted a new
Yeah.
kind of fresh start. And
Yeah.
so that's how I ended up doing what I not because I, you know, had a big decision to make to leave the university. No. I left
Mhm.
the university because there was nothing else there for me. And
But
so,
when
once again,
situation, yeah.
everybody doesn't have to go through the same struggle.
Mhm,
And I'm
mhm.
trying to help other people manage their transitions easier.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is when things like that happen, I often find that I'm a very spiritual person, Dr.
Me
Greta.
too.
And when God is trying to tell you something, He will put those roadblocks in the way so that things don't work out exactly the way you thought that
Right.
they should. And
Hmm.
He will begin to show you something else. And one of the things that was one of this is the God honest truth. I'm about to just be all the way authentic about
Hmm.
it. But one of the things that made me finally decide to leave the university was the fact that the director that I had to work with, she was the director of one of the departments that I was closely connected to. She was awful, like just an awful woman, like
Hmm.
racist woman, didn't really do a lot of prioritizing of students. She had her own agenda, that she
Hmm.
was trying to fulfill, and it really wasn't about the students, right?
Right.
And so I had a very difficult time working with her. And I had already been thinking about leaving the university, but because she was there and I knew that there was no working around the fact that I would
Hmm.
have to work with this woman, I was like, you know what? It's time for me to leave. And,
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, Dr. Greta, after I left, I would say maybe 9 months, not even 9 months. I would say, okay, I left in August. And by April, so this is like maybe what, 8 months?
Hmm.
By April, she was fired.
Wow. Wow.
But it was God like, okay, I need to just nudge you just a little bit more
Hmm.
just to get you out the door. And that's really what that was about, and
Right. Right.
but whenever things don't go exactly the way we think that they should, I think it's God's way of trying to, or our angels or spirits way of trying to get us to go in a certain
Hmm.
direction.
Right. I believe that too. I
Yeah. Mhm.
wholeheartedly believe that. And I know that was the case also in my life because you can't tell me with the experience and
Right,
everything that I had that I didn't look attractive to somebody.
right, right, right. Uh-huh. That's okay.
Let me see if I can continue to talk.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
But yeah.
Hmm. It's so interesting, and so I would love to get into your book. When we met that day, I got a chance to purchase your book, and it's so good. I have so many notes in here, and one of the things that I wish that I would have had when I was a high school student is this book, because in many ways, this book would have been the parent that I did not have. So I'm first generation, first person in my family to go to college. And when I was on that journey, I was on it by myself. My parents didn't know how to help me, didn't want to help me. They just weren't interested. Like school was just not something that they were interested in.
Hmm.
And so I was navigating it all by myself. And I have so many notes in here that and I kept saying, man, I wish I would have knew that. Man, I wish I would have knew that. One of the things that stood out to me the most was how you even broke down the cost of college and things that students have to think about with that cost. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. But this book, if you can get it in the hands of all high school students,
Hmm.
you know, whether they have parents supporting them or not, this
Right.
is going to be a godsend to them. It really is.
Well,
And
thank
so,
you. I really wanted it to be useful, helpful,
yeah, yeah.
practical.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an easy read. So high school students will be able to navigate through this book without any problems and be able to comprehend, all the things in here that you were talking about. So not only is it great for the parents to read, but it's an easy read for high school students too, which is great. And so
Hmm.
in your book, you said it's too often students are thrust into the college setting to satisfy or fulfill the dreams and desires of others, such as their parents, rather than themselves. And that stood out to me because, as an educator, especially as an educator in the field of fashion, I've had a number of students who I've come across where their parents were not in agreement with the fact that they were studying fashion. And you find that quite often in many different majors in the arts, where parents will try to steer their children away from studying in the arts or steer their children in another direction. And so I actually had one of my students, she was actually an upward bound student, and she had taken my fashion class. I taught a summer institute fashion class for Upward Bound for many summers. And so she took my class and really wanted to do fashion. And she was so excited about it, told me that, she was like, I'm coming, Dr. Ellington. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in your class. And her mother talked her out of it. Her
Hmm.
mother talked her into studying nursing because that's what her mother was going to school for. Her mother was actually in school at that time too.
Hmm.
And so her mother was going to school for nursing, and she wanted her daughter to also be a nurse. And so this young lady started school, went for 1 year and dropped out
Right.
and never did finish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my point in making or talking about that in the book is that happens so much that often parents are trying to live vicariously or something through
Mm.
their
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
and or they have a situation where maybe they have had a certain profession in their family for a number of years, and
Right.
suddenly
Right.
this child is going against the grain. They want to do something totally different.
Mm.
But the thing is, if they're not able to do what they really want to do, it's going to affect how they progress, how they do, their
Absolutely.
grades, their
Absolutely.
attitude, their,
Absolutely.
everything about them. Because, choosing a career is so important. And so, one of the things that I would suggest for parents to do is, first of all, stop trying to live through your kids. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You had your chance. And if you weren't
Yes.
able to do whatever you needed to do,
Yes.
whatever, basically, I think they need to find out what their child is interested in.
Mm-hmm.
They also need to find out if the child even wants to go to college. College is
Right.
not for everybody.
That is
I
true.
know that, and so find out what they're interested in. Get them talking about a career, researching a career, going on job shadowing opportunities with somebody in the career, you know, and make sure that it's really what they think it is before you put in all of this time, effort, money, all of that, and then it's not.
Yeah.
And so, the bottom line is the student is the one who's going to school. Hello.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so let them do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let them do that and
Absolutely.
support them,
Absolutely.
regardless of whatever it is. It's not going to
Mhm.
always go how you want it to go or be how you want it to be as a
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah.
But what we want is our children to be successful, to be happy, to be, good citizens, to be
Yeah.
able to be fulfilled in whatever it is they
Right.
choose.
Right.
And we're supposed to support them in doing that.
Right. Right. And in your book, you talked about your daughter's experience. You were hoping that she would go to one of your alma mater schools, and she got there and wasn't interested at all, in it. And, you and your husband had to, figure out a way to support her through whatever she decided she wanted to do, which is amazing to be able
Right.
to have supportive parents like that.
Hmm.
It really is. Yeah. And so I was reading through the book and highlighting some information that you put in here about the importance of understanding finances.
Hmm.
And again, that is something that I wish I would have known. When students grow up in poor families, when you come from a low income background, finances is not something that's often taught
Hmm.
about in families. And if it is talked about, it's talked about in a sense of, okay, how can I stretch this money enough so that I can have
Mhm.
enough until the end of the month, until I get
Right.
paid again, right?
Right.
And so there was no talk about savings. There was no talk about
Mhm.
investments, any of that
Mhm.
kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so just getting the students in the mind frame of thinking about it. I put this in the book. I said, I wish I would have had this book as a high schooler. For students that don't have the support of families, this book would have been a godsend. And you broke down all of the things that students need to think about: tuition, room and board, books and supplies. And books and supplies is so important, especially for students that are art majors, because not only do they have to buy books, but they have to buy a lot of art supplies, and art
Right.
supplies are very expensive.
Right.
And then personal travel, miscellaneous, and purchasing a computer. And then you broke down some of the options that students would have in regards to getting help with financial aid, and how students really need to be able to understand that financial aid packet. Even,
Yes.
they need to really be able to understand what that packet means,
Mhm.
because in the end, if their parents aren't able to help, they're going to be the ones paying it back, right?
Right.
And one of the things that I wish I would have known is because oftentimes when I was taking out financial aid, I would have money left over
Mhm.
that was like reimbursement money, right?
Right.
And so I used the reimbursement money most of the time for books and supplies, but I messed a lot of that money up, Dr. Greta.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
know, I messed
Mhm.
a lot of that money up.
Mhm.
And
Refund check. Yeah.
yeah, you remember?
I know. I know.
Yes,
I
yes,
dealt with
yes.
those students. Yes.
Absolutely. And so it's like, I wish that I would have known to
Yes.
hold on to that money, or to invest that money. If I would have invested just a little bit of that money and left it in some kind of stock or something, just think about how much money I would have right now.
Right.
You know?
And whatever you bought with it didn't even matter.
Right. It didn't.
Mm.
Absolutely not. Right. Absolutely not. And so, can you elaborate on the importance of students understanding the cost? So, when you and your family, because you gave some great examples about you and your kids, and going through school and all that. Can you
Mhm.
give some elaboration on the importance of students understanding the cost, and having access to make the best decisions about how, like, where they should go
Right.
based on cost? Like, can you break that down a little bit?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think the first thing is that the conversation that you said didn't happen in your house and doesn't happen in many homes about what the state of the finances are
Yeah.
needs to happen.
Yeah.
Just bottom line, these kids sometimes are just, at a disservice because they have no idea really what their parents can or guardians can or can't afford.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just elementary.
Yeah.
And so we talk about fit a lot in the book, and finding fit and finding a college that fits, and when it feels good and looks good and everybody's supportive and all of that, and that's fit. But the financial aspect is fit also. And I think
Mm.
people forget about that. And so what they're thinking about is just the access part. If I can
Yeah.
get there, if I can get there
Yeah.
some kind of way, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how, we'll have to figure out how to pay for it. But
Yeah.
that initial conversation needs to be had. This is the amount that we can supply or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you go from there in as far as your looking is concerned.
Right. Right.
To me, it's a waste of time to, unless you have a ton of luck,
Right.
finding scholarship
Scholarships. Yeah.
opportunities. I don't suggest loans. I never would, even though I found myself in the position of taking out loans for
Yeah. Yeah.
one of my children, and three of my children had student loans.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't what I suggested, but it was also a result of not planning. So once again,
Mm.
I write in the book
Wow.
in
Wow.
hindsight, and actually we did plan for my first son, but then we had everything in stock market crash, whatever
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah. Yeah.
back around 2002
Yeah.
or whenever it was, and we were just left looking pretty stupid, you know.
Mm.
We didn't apply for the FAFSA. And so, one thing that I think everybody should do, first of all, is have the conversation about finances. Guide your search for your college from there. Okay. And
Mm,
then also fill out the FAFSA. A lot of people don't feel like they need to fill it out because they think, oh, we make too much money, blah, blah, blah. You don't know how your situation is going to change. So you
right.
need to fill it out. It's better to have it
Wow.
filled out and not need it or not
Right.
get anything
Right.
than some kind of unforeseen circumstance happen and then you don't have it filled out and you're just
Mm,
left holding the financial bag.
right.
Okay.
Right. Right.
So that's one thing that needs to happen. And then once you're searching for a college, you're finding something that is affordable with what your parents or guardians can kick in, what kind of financial aid you can get.
Right.
Um, then you check out the net price calculator about those particular schools to see what you will have to supplement. And then you have a better understanding of what you need to do in order to be able to afford that university.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know a lot of times students do have to work, and that is a
Yeah.
reality,
Yeah.
but it's also best if they don't have to, or if they can
Yeah.
work in the summers,
Right.
or if they can limit their hours, especially in the first years when they're just getting their footing.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily understand like what it takes to be and stay in college.
Right. Yeah. That was going to be the next question that I
Mhm.
asked you about. You have a section, tip 14 in the book, that talks about organizing yourself as students, and the recommended study time you said is about
Mhm.
2 to 3 hours of study time per credit hour.
Mhm.
So if a student's taking 12 credit hours, they need at least 24 hours each week that they set aside for study time. And the first thing I thought about was, I know for sure that I did not put in that much study time because I also had to have a job.
Mhm.
I actually had 2 jobs
Mhm.
while I was in college,
Right.
2 part-time jobs. And so it's like, can you give advice for students on how to manage that time when they do have to work? Like those young people that have no choice
Mhm.
but to work, whether they're working a job off campus or on campus, or maybe you had mentioned something in the book about work study. Like
Mhm.
maybe they're doing work study. Like, how can those young people better manage their time?
Okay. Um, the reality is that they are going to have to strictly manage their time
Hmm.
because there's not enough hours in the day to do
Yeah.
everything that you
Same.
need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if you know that you have to work, you need to start off with the actual planner, a calendar. For me, it works best if it's something I can lay my eyes on. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
a computer program. I want to be able to see it.
Hmm.
So, even now I use paper calendars
Hmm.
to keep me on
Yeah.
task.
I do too.
Okay. But you need to put in your work hours and also determine like the amount of hours you're going to work per week. You need to
Right.
have a steady amount so that you can deal with
Right.
the fact that you do have to study. Because the
Right.
bottom line is you're there for an education.
Right. You're
And if
absolutely
you
right.
don't put the time in to study, you're not going to be there for an education. You're going to be
Hmm.
home. And
Hmm.
so everything needs to be planned out. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I
Mm.
mean working your studies for your classes, what you need to do. And in some classes, you don't have to study as much. Some people are naturally gifted in some areas. They don't have
Mhm.
to study as much in those areas. And so they might not need that 2 hours per class or whatever.
Right.
So that's where you make your adjustments. And you also need to plan like break times, time for recreation, mental health
Mhm.
days, or whatever,
Mhm.
mental health
Mhm.
hours, exercise time, things
Yeah.
that will keep you balanced.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you don't want to get out of balance with any of this. And so I think for those individuals that find that they do have to work, they will have to work really hard to make sure that they are scheduling every part of their life, honestly. And
Mhm.
once they, are used to doing it, it'll come a little bit easier. But at
Yeah.
first, it's going to be a task to try to
Yeah.
see, what I need to spend on, this class and this class and this
Yeah.
class and when I need to be at work. And then you got to have travel time between your
Yeah.
residence hall and the job and
Yeah.
whatever that means. And so everything is going to have to be strategized. The other
Mm.
thing is that, you know, just to be able to be aware that, you know, sometimes your schedule has to change, your time management schedule, just because you plan it out and you think you got everything figured out. Okay, I'm good to go. Sometimes you'll find that it's not working. And when it's
Mm.
not working, you need to adjust it so that you can
Mm.
still have, you know, control over all those aspects of your life. Another thing
Mm.
to take into consideration is the learning styles of
That's
students.
true. That's
They need to
absolutely
be
true.
able
Yeah.
to, you know, use the way in which they learn best to study, because
Yeah.
that's how they're going to memorize or know the information, you
Right.
know, whatever it is. If they're a visual learner and they need to write stuff out, write stuff out. If you need to put
Mhm.
stuff on mirrors and read it every
Right,
morning,
right, right.
do that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
whatever works for you, you're going to have to figure it out as a student who has limited time but a ton of things to do.
Right, 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 right.
Mhm.
As you were talking, Dr. Greta, one of the things that came back to my memory about being an undergrad was that you spoke about the balance and the importance of having a balance. I had some friends that all they did was study and they didn't
Mhm.
do anything else. And then I had some friends that all they did was party,
Right.
right?
Right.
And me somehow I found a way to have a balance. And what I used to do for myself, because since I was a fashion major, there was lots of projects and things that I had
Mhm.
to do. I would know, okay, so this weekend there's a party this weekend. I really, really want to go. Only way I'm going to go is if I finish this project.
Right,
You
right,
know?
prioritize.
Right, that's the only way I'm
Mhm,
gonna go, and if I don't
mhm,
finish this project, then I can't go, so I would,
right,
that would be like a reward for myself
mhm,
knowing that, I got the project done and was satisfied with it, right?
mhm,
Before I left, but students, I think it's so important, and I think it's a huge mistake if students go to the university and don't have a balance and don't
yes,
set in that recreation time or don't set in that study time because they miss
right,
out an amazing part of being in college, you know?
absolutely, and
Yeah,
then they become overwhelmed, and then,
absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
nothing good comes from that,
Mhm.
and you know what, it's interesting that you would say, you know, you knew students that all they did was party, you knew students that all they did was study. I
Yeah.
was the one who all I did was study.
Really.
Yes, because I was scared to death that I was gonna have to be sent home, and that was, like,
Mm.
not going to happen in my household. And
Mm.
so I did a lot of studying. And when I look back now, and at my undergrad experience, it's like a lot of things that I wish I had done. And I have regrets about it. You know, I
Really?
honestly do.
Wow.
Once again, writing the book, trying to help somebody not fall in the same
Yeah.
trap.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a trap
Yeah.
because, you know, when people say, my friends now that I went to undergrad with, they're like, you know, so and so, you know, so and so. No, I don't. I don't know who they are.
Wow.
Unless I went to
Wow.
high school with
Right,
them
right, right.
and knew them then, I probably don't know them
Yeah.
because I was never anywhere they were.
Wow.
Crazy stuff. But, you
Wow.
know, like I said, hindsight is 2020.
Mhm.
You know, and I realized that what I did was not balanced. It
Mm.
was not really, um it wouldn't be anything that I would recommend to anyone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting what you said about being afraid to be sent back home.
Mhm.
I actually was afraid about that as well. And for various different reasons, I just knew I couldn't go back home. Um, but I love to dance too much. I was a dancer, would dance from the time I got into the place until the time the place closed. And so I knew that I needed to save some time, for me to be able to get out on the dance floor, right? And I
Mhm.
think that was my motivation. But I also, in the back of my mind, had that same thought that you did about like I can't be sent home. I
Right.
have to I this is not this is not a choice. I have to do well at this because
Right.
I don't first of all, I don't want to go back home, you
Right.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yes.
You had recommended in the book about the importance of students getting to know their professors. And I believe this is particularly important for students that are students of color at predominantly white institutions. And when I was a professor, I would notice that my Black students will always sit in the back of the room.
Hmm.
And I would always tell them, I need you guys to move up and I
Right.
need you guys to be engaged and ask questions.
Hmm.
I'm sure that other faculty are not doing that for our kids.
Right.
And so it's important that the students find a way to connect
Hmm.
with their professors. And it's so important. Like, um, can you talk a little bit about ways that students can connect with their professors and how important it is for students, regardless of whether they're students of color or not, to be able to have that kind of connection with their like with their professors?
It's vitally, vitally important that they connect with their professors. I talk about it in the book.
Yeah.
And, it's really, really wonderful that you were that kind of professor that said, come
Hmm.
up,
Hmm.
engage.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we don't know what the normal behavior is as first generation college students. We're
Right.
on a
Absolutely.
predominantly white campus. You're kind of feeling isolated, alone.
Hmm.
You don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
so you do better in classes when you're engaged. You
Yeah.
also do better in classes when you don't have distractions. And
Mm.
a lot of the fact that you're sitting in front, all the distractions can be behind you.
Oh yeah. Oh
And you
yeah.
don't have to worry about what's going on in the rest of the
Right.
class
Right.
as long
Right.
as you're up front trying to get your education and
Yeah.
engaging, letting the professor know who you are, and not just because you're in a panic mode because you're failing.
Yeah.
So the first thing is find out the office hours for professors. They all have them.
Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily have an issue to go and talk to a professor during their office hours. You can go in and talk about different things that are pertaining to the class, but you can also just go in, kind of introduce yourself to the
Hmm.
professor, let them know that you care about the class. Because
Hmm.
the thing is, I've been a professor before as well,
Hmm.
and every single professor thinks their stuff is more important than anybody else's stuff. Okay. So when you come and talk to me about what I'm talking about or what we're going over in class, I'm loving that.
Yeah.
That's stroking my
Yeah.
ego. I want to know who you are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I want to know what you're thinking. I want to, have a relationship with you,
Right.
okay? Because professors are people too. We're
Absolutely.
not on some uh, big pedestal or something where
Yeah.
you can't come, you can't talk, you can't do anything. And so, that's the best way to have it. Go in, talk, introduce yourself, and then when things come up, if things come up, you can
Right.
easily go in and talk to them about it. If you start experiencing a problem in class, you can easily go in and say, you know what,
Mhm.
this is going on, but it's not like this is the first time they've ever seen you suddenly
Right.
because you
Right.
got a D
Right.
on something,
Right.
and it's like 2 weeks left in the semester, or what can I
Right.
do?
Right. Right.
Nobody has time for that. It's like
Right.
you were the same person in the same class all this semester. So, love, love, love to have met you earlier and gotten to
Yeah.
know you, and maybe I could have helped you in your
Right.
struggle. And
Mhm.
a lot of times, I talk to my husband because he is a professor now. And so a lot of times when people are having difficulty in his class, and it is like graphics and design and all that stuff. So people have difficulty, he'll have them come in to their office hours, and he'll even do a preliminary check on their stuff,
Mm.
before you get the bad grade.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the students will come and say, this is what I'm working on. What do you think? What do
Mm.
you think about my approach? What should
Yeah.
I be doing? What am I missing? And that way, when the actual project is due, then they have had time to work
Yeah.
out any issues, and they don't get that big blow at the end. And
Mm.
so that's all a result of having a relationship with a professor that cares. And many professors do
Right.
care.
They
But
do.
you have to put yourself out there and be vulnerable as well. You have to go
Yeah.
in, tell them who you are, make yourself known.
Yeah.
Your professor should know who you are. You shouldn't go through a whole semester as a student and the professor has no clue who you are. That's
Especially
insane.
especially think about those big classes, right?
Mhm.
Those really big classes where, you know, professors
Mhm.
never really get to know those students.
Right.
So it's
Right.
really even more like in that particular you know, space, it's really important that you take the time out to go and at least you know,
Yes.
to connect with your professor. Absolutely.
Absolutely, and that is the only way they do know you in those large
Right,
classes,
right. Yeah.
because you have made yourself known.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, if you have a problem later, it's not hard to go in and say, "You know what?
Mhm.
I've been trying to keep up with this reading. This is what I'm doing. This is how I've been progressing. Can you make some suggestions?
Right.
So that it'll be easier for me, or, do you have another study guide?" You can ask them things like
Right.
that,
Right.
when you have a relationship with them.
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm going to close our discussion on the topic of mental health.
Mhm.
Your book is so comprehensive that you even bring in the importance of students taking care of their overall health and particularly their mental health. And with the pandemic that we were just out of, mental health issues became a major problem for
Absolutely.
lots of students, not just students, but faculty and parents. And I mean, it was just a struggle for many, many of us. And
Mhm.
so what would you say are some signs? And I know you're not a psychologist,
Mhm.
Dr. Greta, but what are some signs that you feel like students can look for that will tell them, okay, I need to go seek some help?
Right. I think just in general, changes in their personality,
Mm,
because people know generally what kind of person they are, if
yeah,
they're upbeat, if they're not, things like that. If they're unable to sleep, if
yeah,
they're overwhelmed or feeling overwhelmed or
yeah,
anxious, something is going on. Even if it's not a mental health issue, there's something that needs to be addressed. And then a lot of times when students are going through issues, it's really because they don't know how to handle things. And this pandemic, the students weren't the only ones going through.
mhm,
Okay. I'm just saying, because
yeah,
we still don't know what normal is. And I don't
right,
know that we ever will.
yeah,
But when students present themselves differently than they had been in the past, or if they recognize that, I'm snappy, I'm a grouch
mm,
now, or,
mm, mm.
I don't want to be around people, I'm
People, right,
isolating
right,
myself.
right, right.
That is a real trigger, at least for them to think there's something going on with me and I might need to talk to somebody. And
Yeah.
so I think the time is right, because there's so much grace, honestly, being extended by professors and college officials now, as far as mental health is
Oh,
concerned,
absolutely.
trying to definitely see the whole person and deal with the issues that nobody can explain.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I really think that once they see, or someone tells them that,
yeah.
what, you really are tripping, or whatever they want to say.
Right,
I don't
right,
even know if they
right.
use that word anymore, but just kind of take a check and say, okay, maybe I need to talk to someone.
Yeah. And when I think about our students of color, and oftentimes mental health challenges is taboo,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
a lot of students of colors, household, Black students, Latin ex student families, a lot of times they don't like this whole idea of going to talk to somebody to tell
Right.
them about the things that's going on, especially things that's going on in your house. It's like, you don't
Mhm.
talk about what's happening in the house, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So it's like, what are some things that what would you recommend for those students of color that have a very difficult time um, deciding whether or not they should go and see somebody?
Well, I think you just have to weigh what the results could be if they don't.
Mm, mm, mm.
Because we're seeing all kind of things going on, and some of it is being called mental health issues,
Yeah, yeah.
and a lot of it is just bad behavior.
Right,
But
right,
I think everybody needs to. We're talking about normalizing all kind of stuff right now.
right, right,
What we need to
right,
normalize is getting
right.
help, mental health counseling,
Yeah,
when you need it. You
right.
know, it needs to be something that you run to rather than something that you're trying to hide. And so
Hmm.
I think if we can just get the mindset changed, you
Yeah,
know, just in general, it would be better. But I know they could have a struggle with that because first of all, we don't necessarily put our business in the street like, our
Right, right,
parents
right,
do,
right,
you
right,
know, and we don't do mental health stuff,
right.
you know,
Mhm.
but the thing is, we need it. So, uh,
Mhm.
so I'm just saying, to try to just look at what's going on in your life. Do you want to continue in the, way you're going? Or do you want to do something that could possibly help you and change, what's going on in your life to make it better? I think they just have to make a personal decision that they need to make a change and just do it regardless of really what anybody says.
Yeah.
There's mental health counseling available on or near every campus.
Yeah.
And so that means doing it. Your parents aren't there. So if you need to talk
Mhm.
to somebody, I know in the long run, they would rather you talk to somebody than something else happen that's,
Mhm.
devastating.
Yeah, yeah, and I think about my journey with that. I suffer through anxiety
Hmm.
and I suffer through depression, PTSD, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things that I would just like to say to students that are watching, if you decide to go to seek mental health assistance, nobody has to know.
Hmm.
For many, many years, and I don't think my mom still ever knew that I
Hmm.
ever went to a therapist because I just never talked to her about it.
Hmm.
And so if you really feel like you need those services, you don't have to tell anybody.
Right.
Go and just take care of yourself.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also like to point out that they even have those online now,
Yeah, right,
virtual.
right,
So it's like if you just can't even fathom yourself going into like somebody's
right,
office or whatever,
right.
try to get somebody, that will do, video conferencing or whatever with you, and
Absolutely.
just get your needs met. That's the best thing because
Mhm.
the worst thing is the devastation that can sometimes follow when people don't.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Is there anything that you want to touch on, Dr. Greta, that we didn't discuss?
Well, I think we did cover a lot. I think
Yes.
because we have so much in common, it's like,
Yeah.
we are kind of joined at the hip. So
Yes.
you're going to find out how joined we are when I send my book to you for you to read over it and review
Yes.
before I put it out. I would greatly hope that you could do that for
Absolutely.
me
I would be honored to do that.
because the career one, you've done it. Once again,
Yeah.
have some eyes that know what we're talking about on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I just want to say that it's just a pleasure to talk to you always because it's so important the work that we do, and sometimes it's just not talked about as much as it needs to be
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
honestly, the things that we do in trying to get students to and through higher education that can change somebody's entire lives. It
Yeah.
can change their life. It can
Yeah.
change your life for generations to come. And so that's why
Absolutely.
it's so near and dear to my heart, and I know yours as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, how can people connect with you, Dr. Greta?
Okay, well, my web address is Greta Oliver Consulting.com. My email is do I know what my email is? It's Dr. Greta at GretaOliverConsulting.com.
Okay.
And Educate You can be found on YouTube, on the Educate You forum.
Hmm.
Just search that and it'll come right up.
Yeah.
And, if you want to know more about any of the topics that are in the book, that is a good place to find out that
Yeah.
and more.
Yeah.
And so, anybody that has any questions or comments or has anything to say or add, I welcome it.
Yeah. Are you on social media, Dr. Greta?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What
Okay.
platforms?
Just really on my name, Greta Oliver.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I'm
Okay.
on Twitter as well. So,
Okay.
yes.
Good. And I recommend that everybody go and pick up her book. It's so good. If you have a young person in your life that is about to journey into college, this book is going to be so helpful for them to help them better navigate. If they don't feel like they have support, this book is going to be the support that they need.
Hmm.
It's a book that I wish I would have had when I was a young person. So thank you, Dr. Greta.
Always love to hear that. You're
Yes,
welcome.
yes, yes. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time. Have a good one.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Bye bye.
So, this is the time of the episode. I'd like to talk a little bit about research. As you all know, I'm a researcher and educator, and I think it's really important that I give you guys some resources that you can use that will relate to these topics that we talk about. And so I don't really have any resource in particular, but what I will tell you is that the conversation that Dr. Greta and I were having about getting students ready for ready to transition from high school into college. This is a movement that has been happening since the 1960s. When programs such as Upward Bound came into play, we now today even have programs called Gear Up. And there are other programs across the nation that work with trying to get students ready and prepared to be able to go to college. And so there's many school districts also where I'm at in Akron. There's early college high schools that are also available, and the government has done a lot with making sure that they support those missions and support those schools so that students can be better prepared. I'm sure some of you guys have probably heard of post-secondary enrollment. Those programs, very similar to early college, that help those young people get prepared for going to college. Programs like the Gear Up and Upper Bound, they actually even go a step further with helping students complete financial aid. They might help them maybe cover some of the fees that it costs for the students to take their standardized tests. They might even spend some time with students helping them apply for scholarships, going over their essay, because you have to write some kind of statement or essay when you apply for scholarships. And so it's really important that those programs continue to get the needed support from the government. And one of the things that I don't understand, I don't know why this is the way that it is, but programs like TRIO programs, Upward Bound, oftentimes they are on the chopping block. Whenever the government is looking to do budget cuts and things like that, those are some of the programs that get cut first. Those programs often, like I think it's every 4 or 5 years, they have to write another grant to continue the support. So I don't understand why those programs just are not automatically funded, because they do so much great work for students. Me including myself, I would not be the person that I am today if it were not for programs such as TRIO and Upward Bound. And so this episode of Student Access 101 is brought to you by my book, Be the Goat. And Be the Goat is a book that I wrote specifically for students that are college students. Maybe they just finished high school and they're looking to go directly into their career. Maybe they are looking to go directly into college, and then from college into a career. But this book is a book that gives students some of that edge that they need to be able to be competitive in their industry. When I was a student finishing up school and going into corporate spaces, I had no idea that there was a culture, a corporate culture, and what that looked like. I had no idea um, that I could even negotiate my salary. That was something that was huge for me. I didn't realize that until I was well into my 30s. And so in this book, I talk about those things, and it's really important that young people get a chance to get the knowledge so that they can have an edge. But this book, I want to be able to give some of these books away to students in need. Last year, I was able to give 30 of these books to the Kent State University Student Support Services, which is a TRIO program. And my goal this year is to be able to at least give 30 more books. I can only do that with the support of individuals who are generously donating to the Ellington Foundation. And so, for those of you that didn't know, I have a foundation, the Ellington Foundation. Just recently, just found out that we are now a full-blown official 501c3, which means that if you donate to the Ellington Foundation, you can write that off on your taxes, which is amazing, right? And so if you have not already had an opportunity to donate, please consider donating. The Ellington Foundation fundraiser will be up through, I think, the last Friday in November. And the reason why we're ending it then is because we want to catch the November 29th Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is a national day of giving across the nation. Many different organizations, universities all have this Giving Tuesday program where they allow foundations and other donors to be able to match some of their money. So my goal is to be able to get my monies in by Tuesday the 29th so that I can get my monies matched, because if I get my monies matched, I can be able to help more students. I can be able to donate more books. And so if you have not already given to the Ellington Foundation, please consider giving. The link for the donation is on the bottom. You can just go straight to GoFundMe and type in third annual Ellington Foundation fundraiser, and please give. I appreciate it. Thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it and leave a comment on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and share it with those in your circles who may benefit. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and together we can do this. Together we can change the trajectory of equitable education for underrepresented students. And always remember, there's no success without student access. Everybody have a good night.